The alarm bells screamed through Kepler Station as explosions rocked the massive structure. Commander Jinho gripped the railing of the command deck, watching his tactical display show one red warning after another. Enemy ships surrounded them, like hungry wolves. "Sir, we've lost sections 12 through 15, reported Lieutenant Haywan, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Hull breaches on multiple levels. We're losing atmosphere fast." Jinho nodded grimly. They all knew this day would come eventually. The Hegemony Coalition had been pushing deeper into human space for months, crushing every defense humanity could throw at them. Kepler Station was supposed to be their strongest outpost, their last major stronghold before Earth itself. Now it was dying. Through the massive viewing ports, Jinho could see the alien fleet. Hundreds of sleek, beautiful ships that moved like dancers through space. Their energy weapons painted brilliant streaks of light across the darkness, each beam finding its mark with deadly precision. The human defenders fired back desperately, but their projectile weapons seemed crude and slow compared to the elegant destruction the aliens wielded. "Commander, we're getting reports from all sectors," called out Sergeant Minjae from the communications station. "The civilian evacuation is only 60% complete. We need more time." Time. The one thing they didn't have. Jinho watched. Another section of the station explode in a shower of metal and fire. Somewhere in that wreckage were families, children, people who had never asked to be part of this war. They had come to Kepler Station looking for a new life among the stars. Instead, they found themselves on the front lines of humanity's fight for survival. "All remaining defense platforms concentrate fire on the flagship," Jinho ordered. "Give the evacuation shuttles cover." The human gunners obeyed without question, even though they knew it was hopeless. Their weapons hammered away at the alien. Vessels occasionally scoring hits that sent enemy ships spinning away trailing plasma. But for every alien ship they damaged, 10 more took its place. Admiral Kyotar stood on the bridge of her magnificent flagship, watching the human station. Burn with satisfaction. These stubborn creatures had refused every reasonable offer to join the hegemony peacefully. They insisted on maintaining their primitive independence, their chaotic democracy, their messy individual freedoms. Such thinking was dangerous to the young. Ordered galaxy the Coalition had spent centuries building. "The human resistance is collapsing," reported her tactical officer. "Their defensive fire has decreased by 70%. "Excellent," Kyotar replied. "Begin preparing the victory broadcasts. The galaxy should know that the human problem is finally being solved." Back on Kepler Station, Jinho made the hardest decision of his life. The station was lost. The civilians were already aboard evacuation shuttles, racing toward the jump points and safety. But someone had to stay behind to buy them time. Someone had to make sure the aliens paid a price for their victory. "All remaining personnel to evacuation shuttles," he announced over the station's communication system. "This is a direct order. Abandon station immediately." But even as he gave the order, Jinho was already heading in the opposite direction. Deep in the station's core was the quantum beacon, humanity's most advanced communication device. If he could reach it, he could send one final message to Earth, a warning about what was coming, a call for help that might make the difference in the war ahead. The corridors were filled with smoke and emergency lighting as he made his way through the dying station. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of his people following his orders, their boots echoing as they ran toward the shuttle bays. Some of them were crying. Others were shouting encouragement to their comrades. All of them were showing the kind of courage that made Jinho proud to be human. The quantum beacon chamber was still intact when he reached it, though the walls showed stress fractures from the constant bombardment. Jinho's fingers flew over, the controls encoding the most important message humanity had ever sent. He kept it simple, knowing that every second counted. "They're coming. Wake the Dreadnoughts." The message compressed into a quantum pulse and shot toward Earth at speeds, faster than light itself. Jinho watched the confirmation light blink green, then smiled. His mission was complete. Above him, the final evacuation shuttle lifted away from Kepler Station. Lieutenant Haywan was at the controls, tears streaming down her face as she watched her commander's sacrifice. She had begged him to come with them, but Jinho had refused. Someone had to make sure the beacon worked. Someone had to buy the evacuees those last precious minutes. The shuttle's sensors detected the massive explosion as Kepler Station's fusion reactors overloaded. The entire structure vanished in a ball of white fire that briefly outshone the local star. When the light faded, nothing remained but glowing debris and the memory of humanity's courage. Admiral Kyotar watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. "Signal the fleet. Begin broadcasting our victory to all coalition worlds. The 2 human outer colonies have fallen. Their pathetic resistance is broken. Soon we will reach their homeworld and end this war forever." Across the galaxy, alien species celebrated the news. The troublesome humans were finally being put in their place. Their stubborn insistence on independence was ending. The natural order was being restored. But Jinho's message was already racing toward Earth, carrying with it the promise of humanity's response. The message arrived at Lunar Base exactly 18 minutes after Kepler Station died. Fleet Admiral Min-Su was reviewing supply reports in his office when the quantum beacon started flashing urgent red. He knew immediately what it meant. After 50 years of preparation, the moment they had all dreaded and anticipated was finally here. "Wake the Dreadnoughts," he read aloud, Jinho's final words glowing on his screen. Min-Su closed his eyes for a moment, thinking about all the brave souls who had died at Kepler Station. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. More importantly, it would not be wasted. Lunar Base looked like any other mining operation from the outside. Massive hauler ships came and went daily, carrying what appeared to be processed minerals back to Earth. Tourist shuttles occasionally brought visitors to see the famous Museum of Lunar Industry. Everything seemed perfectly normal and boring, but beneath the surface, hidden in caverns that had been carved over decades, lay humanity's greatest secret. Captain So Young walked through the main assembly bay, her footsteps echoing in the enormous space. Above her, suspended in construction cradles, hung machines of war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Dreadnoughts were not beautiful like alien ships. They had no flowing curves or elegant designs. Instead, they looked like what they were, pure instruments of destruction. Each one was over 2 kilometers long and built like a flying fortress. Their hulls were covered in armor plating so thick it could stop anything short of a direct nuclear blast. Weapon turrets bristled from every surface, housing cannons that fired solid projectiles at incredible speeds. "Status report," Min-Su said as he joined So Young in the assembly bay. "All 37 vessels are ready for immediate deployment," she replied. "Crews have been on standby for the past 6 months. Weapon systems are fully charged. AI networks are synchronized and ready to link." Min-Su nodded. The artificial intelligence systems were perhaps humanity's greatest innovation. While alien species had always been suspicious of thinking machines, humans had embraced them completely. Each dreadnought carried an AI that could process battle information faster than any living mind. When networked together, they became something even more powerful, a collective intelligence that could coordinate the movements of an entire fleet with perfect precision. "What about the crews?" Min-Su asked. Eager for payback, So Young replied with a grim smile. "Most of them had family on the outer colonies. They've been waiting for this chance." The human crews were another advantage the aliens didn't understand. While hegemony forces relied on strict military hierarchy and unquestioning obedience, human naval crews operated on a different principle. Every sailor, from the lowest technician to the ship's captain, was encouraged to think, to innovate, to find creative solutions to problems. This flexibility had won humanity many battles in the past. Soon it would win them the war. In the dreadnought Vengeance, Commander Tae-hyun ran his final system checks. The ship's AI, which the crew had nicknamed Alice, spoke to him through the comm system with a voice that sounded almost human. "All weapon systems green, Commander. Kinetic cannons loaded and ready. Fusion drive at full power. I'm detecting increased heart rates among the crew. Are you nervous?" Tae-hyun chuckled. The AI had developed quite a personality over the years. "We're not nervous, Alice. We're excited. We've been training for this our whole lives. I understand. My analysis indicates a 93% probability of mission success, assuming the enemy tactics match our projections. And if they don't match, then we improvise. Isn't that what humans do best? Across the solar system, similar scenes were playing out at hidden bases on asteroids, in underwater facilities on Earth, and in camouflaged shipyards throughout the outer planets. For 50 years, humanity had been preparing for this war while pretending to be peaceful farmers and miners and traders. Every defeat in the outer colonies had been part of a larger strategy. Every retreat had drawn the enemy closer to the trap. Aliens thought they understood human technology. They had captured plenty of human ships over the years and studied them carefully. What they found confirmed their assumptions. Humans used primitive projectile weapons, simple fusion drives, and basic defensive systems. Clearly, these creatures were centuries behind coalition technology. What the aliens didn't know was that every ship they had captured was deliberately obsolete. The real human fleet had never been seen in battle. It had been waiting in the dark, growing stronger, preparing for the day when humanity would reveal its true nature. Lieutenant Jae-sung monitored alien communications from his post in the intelligence center. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is 6 hours out from Earth. They're broadcasting victory messages across the galaxy. Apparently, they think we're defenseless." Min-soo smiled coldly. "Perfect. Let them think that right up until the moment we teach them otherwise. Captain So-young, begin Phase 1 deployment. It's time to wake the Dreadnoughts." Throughout the hidden bases, massive doors began opening for the first time in decades. The Dreadnoughts stirred to life, their fusion reactors igniting with the power of captured stars. Weapon systems came online, AI networks synchronized. Human crews took their positions at battle stations they had drilled on thousands of times, but never used in actual combat. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity had been hiding much more than mining equipment in the darkness between the worlds. Admiral Kyotar stood proudly on the bridge of her flagship Divine Order, watching the largest fleet in galactic history approach the Sol system. 2,000 warships stretched across space like a glittering constellation of death. Ships from dozens of different species had joined the coalition for this final assault on humanity's homeworld. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from the Mars colonies," reported her communications officer. "They're offering to lay down their weapons without resistance." Kyotar nodded with satisfaction. "Accept their surrender. Post-occupation forces, but treat the colonists well. Soon, they'll understand the benefits of joining our civilization." The Martian surrender had been expected. Intelligence reports showed the red planet had only minimal defenses and a small population of terraforming engineers. But it was still gratifying to see human resistance crumble so quickly. After the devastating defeat at Kepler Station, it seemed the fight had gone out of Earth's children. Captain Velkoth, her tactical officer, highlighted new contacts on the main display. "The asteroid mining stations are powering down their systems. We're detecting evacuation shuttles heading for the outer system." "Let them go," Kyotar decided. "Fleeing miners pose no threat to our operations. Focus on military targets." What she didn't know was that those fleeing miners were actually advanced scouts, reporting every detail of the hegemony fleet's approach to hidden command centers throughout the solar system. Captain Jamin crouched in his concealed observation post on Europa, Jupiter's ice-covered moon, carefully recording the enemy's formation and weapon signatures. "This is Observer 7 to Lunar Command," he whispered into his encrypted communicator. "Enemy fleet composition confirmed. 2,000 vessels, mostly energy-based weapon systems. They're maintaining standard coalition attack formation. No sign they suspect our true capabilities." Far below Europa's frozen surface, Admiral Min-soo received the report in his command bunker. The facility had been built to look like a simple research station studying Jupiter's moons. In reality, it was one of dozens of hidden military installations throughout the solar system. "Excellent work, Jamin," Min-soo replied. "Continue monitoring. Phase 2 begins in 30 minutes. The hegemony fleet swept through the outer solar system like an unstoppable tide. Jupiter's moons went silent one by one, their research stations apparently abandoned in panic. The asteroid belt seemed empty, except for floating chunks of rock and the occasional automated mining platform. Admiral Kyotar allowed herself a moment of triumph. "Begin recording for galactic broadcast." The people of the Coalition deserved to witness this historic moment. Her flagship's cameras began transmitting live feeds across hegemony space. Billions of alien viewers watched as human civilization's last strongholds fell without significant resistance. The stubborn species that had refused to join the galactic community for over a century was finally learning the price of defiance. "Citizens of the Coalition," Kyotar announced to the cameras, "today marks the end of human resistance. Their homeworld lies defenseless before our righteous fleet. Soon, Earth will take its proper place in our ordered galaxy." The broadcast was picked up by news networks throughout Coalition space. On worlds spanning hundreds of light years, alien families gathered around their communication devices to watch humanity's final defeat. Street celebrations began on the hegemony capital world. Military academies would study this campaign for generations as an example of superior strategy and technology overcoming primitive determination. But in the depths of Earth's oceans, ancient doors were beginning to open. Commander Tai Hyun felt the vengeance shudder as massive pumps drained water from the hidden dry dock. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency, preparing systems that hadn't been used in decades. The ship's AI, Alice, monitored thousands of status indicators simultaneously. "Commander, all systems are green across the board," Alice reported. "Hull integrity at 100%, kinetic weapons loaded and charged, fusion drive ready for full power. I must say, it feels good to finally stretch my circuits." Similar scenes played out across the solar system. On Luna, Captain So Young watched 36 other dreadnoughts emerge from their hidden construction bays. In the asteroid belt, camouflaged, shipyards revealed their true purpose as massive blast doors opened to release vessels of war. Even Earth's Pacific Ocean bubbled and churned as underwater facilities prepared to launch their deadly cargo. The hegemony fleet detected the first power signatures as Earth's dreadnoughts came online. Kyotar frowned at her tactical display, which showed massive energy readings appearing throughout the solar system. "Analysis?" she demanded. "Unknown, Admiral," replied Captain Velkoth. "The energy patterns don't match any known human technology. Perhaps they're overloading their fusion reactors in a desperate attempt at scorched Earth tactics." Kyotar nodded. That would be typical human behavior. Rather than surrender gracefully, they would probably try to damage their own infrastructure to deny it to the Coalition. Primitive thinking, but predictable. "All ships, prepare for final assault on Earth orbit," she commanded. "Be ready for suicide attacks from remaining human vessels. They may try to ram our ships rather than surrender." As the hegemony fleet moved into Earth orbit, Admiral Min-Su stood in the command center of Luna Base, watching the enemy positioning themselves, exactly where humanity wanted them. The aliens had no idea they were flying into the most carefully planned ambush in military history. "All dreadnought captains, this is Admiral Min-Su. The enemy is in position. 50 years of preparation come down to the next 30 minutes. Show them what happens when you corner a species that refuses to quit." The moment of truth had arrived. The first sign of trouble came when hegemony sensors detected massive power signatures emerging from Earth's Pacific Ocean. Admiral Kyotar stared at her tactical display in confusion as unknown contacts began appearing throughout the solar system. "What am I looking at?" she demanded from her bridge crew. "Unknown vessels, Admiral," replied her tactical officer, his voice uncertain. "They don't match any human ship designs in our database. The power readings are extraordinary." 37. Shapes rose from hidden positions across the solar system, like ancient titans awakening from sleep. The Vengeance burst from the ocean depths, water cascading from its massive hull as it climbed toward space. On Luna, the Retribution emerged from underground hangars that had been sealed for decades. Throughout the asteroid belt, camouflaged, shipyards revealed their deadly secrets. Commander Tae-hyun stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching his crew work with practiced precision. These men and women had trained for this moment their entire careers, running endless simulations and drills. Now it was time to put their preparation to the test. "Alice, target analysis complete?" he asked the ship's AI. "Affirmative, Commander. I've identified optimal firing solutions for all enemy vessels within range." The network is synchronized with our sister ships. We're ready to demonstrate why underestimating humans is a fatal mistake. The Dreadnoughts moved with purpose that shocked the watching hegemony fleet. Unlike the scattered, desperate attacks the aliens expected from cornered humans, these ships coordinated with mechanical precision. Their artificial intelligence systems shared targeting data faster than any organic mind could process. Commander Ye Jun commanded the weapons deck of the Retribution. Around him, human gunners prepared the kinetic cannons that would soon introduce the galaxy to a new kind of warfare. While alien fleets relied on energy weapons that were flashy but limited by power generation, humans had chosen a different path. "Target the enemy flagship's escort vessels," Ye Jun ordered. "Show them what solid matter moving at light speed can do." The first kinetic round fired from the Retribution was a tungsten rod no bigger than a telephone pole, but accelerated to 90% of light speed by magnetic coils running the length of the ship. It carried more destructive force than most nuclear weapons. The projectile crossed the space between ships in milliseconds, striking the first hegemony cruiser amidships. The alien vessel simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, shields glowing confidently. The next moment, it was an expanding cloud of superheated gas and metal fragments. The tungsten rod continued through two more ships behind it, before finally dissipating its energy in the void. Admiral Kyotar watched three of her finest cruisers vanish in the blink of an eye. "What just happened?" she screamed. "Unknown weapon type," her tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. "Some kind of kinetic projectile. Our shields offered no resistance whatsoever." Across the hegemony fleet, similar scenes of destruction played out as human dreadnoughts opened fire. Captain Hyojin coordinated the AI network from her position aboard the Defiance, watching as 37 ships fought with the coordination of a single massive organism. "All ships, pattern Delta 7, she commanded. "Let's show them what networked artificial intelligence can accomplish." The human fleet moved like a school of deadly fish, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be at any given moment. When hegemony vessels tried to concentrate their fire on a single dreadnought, they found their target had already moved to a position covered by three others. When they attempted to flank the human formation, they discovered their enemies had predicted the maneuver and prepared countermeasures. Lieutenant Dong Wu operated the defensive systems aboard the Justice, watching enemy energy beams splash harmlessly off his ship's armor. "Commander, their weapons aren't even scratching our hull plating." "Expected," replied his captain calmly. "Human military doctrine has always prepared for the worst-case scenario. Our armor was designed to survive direct nuclear strikes. Their fancy laser shows can't even heat up the outer layer." The hegemony had built their entire military strategy around energy weapons because they were clean, efficient, and impressive to watch. But energy dissipates over distance and can be absorbed or deflected by the right materials. Kinetic weapons, on the other hand, follow the simple laws of physics. Mass times velocity equals force, and human dreadnoughts carried a lot of mass, moving very, very fast. Admiral Kyotar realized her 2,000-ship armada was being systematically destroyed by fewer than 40 human vessels. Ships that had taken decades to build and centuries to perfect were being reduced to scrap metal by weapons that shouldn't have been possible. "All ships, full retreat," she ordered. "Emergency jump to rally point 7. But the human dreadnoughts weren't interested in letting their enemies escape. As hegemony vessels tried to flee, they found human ships in perfect position to intercept them. The AI network had calculated every possible escape route and positioned vessels accordingly. Commander Su Jin watched from the bridge of the Reckoning as another group of enemy ships tried to break through their formation. "Fire at will," she ordered. "Don't let any of them report back to Hegemony High Command about our capabilities." The space around Earth became a graveyard of alien dreams. Ships that had been the pride of their respective fleets drifted as lifeless hulks, their crews either dead or desperately trying to reach escape pods. The survivors would carry tales of impossible human technology and warfare tactics that seemed to violate everything they thought they knew about combat. In 30 minutes of fighting, the hegemony lost over 800 vessels, while the human dreadnoughts suffered only minor damage to their outer armor plating. It wasn't a battle. It was a demonstration of why humanity had spent 50 years preparing for this exact moment. Admiral Minsu's voice echoed across all communication frequencies from his flagship. Any hegemony vessel still in Sol space has 5 minutes to begin jump procedures. After that, we stop being polite. The remaining alien ships didn't need to be told twice. The news of what happened at Sol spread across the galaxy faster than the fleeing hegemony ships could carry it. What had begun as humanity's predicted destruction had become the Coalition's most devastating defeat in over 1,000 years of galactic history. On the hegemony capital world of Zentara Prime, High Chancellor Mordek received the reports in his magnificent council chamber. The numbers seemed impossible. 800 Coalition vessels destroyed. 37 unknown human ships responsible for the carnage. The mighty fleet that was supposed to end human resistance had been shattered in less than an hour. This must be some kind of mistake, Mordek insisted, his scaled hands trembling as he read the battle reports. Humans use primitive technology. Their ships are centuries behind our designs. But the surviving ship captains told the same story over and over. Weapons that passed through energy shields like they didn't exist. Human vessels that moved with impossible coordination. Technology that violated everything the hegemony thought they knew about warfare. Meanwhile, the human dreadnoughts weren't finished with their work. Admiral Minsu had spent 50 years planning not just Earth's defense, but humanity's response to decades of hegemony aggression. Every colony that had been destroyed, every family that had been separated, every act of alien cruelty was recorded in human memory banks. Captain Do Hyun commanded the Judgment as it dropped out of hyperspace. Above Admiral Kyota's homeworld, the alien admiral had barely made it back to her planet when the human dreadnought appeared in orbit like an avenging angel. "This is Captain Do Hyun of the Terran Defense Force," he broadcast on all frequencies. "We know Admiral Kyota is on this world. We know she commanded the fleet that destroyed our colonies. We know she ordered the deaths of innocent civilians." On the planet's surface, Kyota watched from her family estate as the massive human warship hung motionless above the clouds. Its weapons were not aimed at the planet, but their presence was threat enough. A single kinetic round from that ship could crack the planet's crust. "What do you want?" she transmitted back, her voice barely steady. "Justice," Do Hyun replied simply. "Your government will surrender all military assets in human space. You will pay reparations for every destroyed colony. You will submit to human inspection of your weapons facilities. These are not negotiations. These are the terms of your surrender." Similar scenes played out across Coalition space as human dreadnoughts appeared at strategic worlds throughout the hegemony. The Vengeance materialized above the primary military shipyard at Kethara. The Retribution took position over the Coalition's main intelligence headquarters. Each ship carried the same message. The balance of power in the galaxy had changed forever. Commander Tae Hyun stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching alien technicians reluctantly shut down weapons production facilities under human supervision. The shipyard below had built many of the vessels that attacked human colonies. Now it would build reparation materials for the families of those who had died. "Alice, how are our diplomatic teams doing planetside?" he asked the ship's AI. "Quite well, Commander. The local authorities are being very cooperative. It's remarkable how reasonable beings become when they realize their weapons cannot harm us, but ours can certainly harm them." The human diplomatic approach was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Rather than conquering worlds or demanding tribute, humanity asked for something much simpler: respect. They wanted their territorial claims recognized. They wanted their right to exist acknowledged. They wanted promises that the galaxy's other species would never again try to wipe out human civilization. Captain So Young found herself stationed above the Coalition's primary communications hub, ensuring that humanity's message reached every corner of hegemony space. The broadcast was simple but effective. "This is Captain So Young of the human starship Defiance. For over a century, your governments have treated humanity as a problem to be solved. You've tried economic pressure, political isolation, and, finally, military conquest. Each approach has failed because you fundamentally misunderstood what you were dealing with. The transmission showed images of human colonies before and after hegemony attacks. Peaceful farming settlements turned to radioactive craters. Research stations reduced to floating debris. Families torn apart by alien weapons designed to terrorize and subdue. "We are not conquerors," So Young continued. "We do not seek to rule your worlds or control your governments. But we will no longer tolerate attacks on human civilians. We will no longer accept being treated as inferior beings who should be grateful for your attention." The climax came when Admiral Min-Su himself arrived at Zentara Prime aboard his flagship. 36 other dreadnoughts dropped out of hyperspace around the hegemony capital world, their massive hulls blocking out stars as they took defensive positions. High Chancellor Mordek watched from his palace as the human fleet surrounded his planet. These were not the primitive vessels his intelligence services had described. These were weapons of war beyond anything in the Coalition arsenal. "Open a channel to the human admiral," he ordered, his voice heavy with defeat. Min-Su's face appeared. On the main screen, calm and professional despite the magnitude of the moment. "High Chancellor Mordek, I believe we have matters to discuss." "What are your terms?" Mordek asked. "Simple," Min-Su replied. "Complete withdrawal from all human space. Reparations for destroyed colonies. A formal treaty recognizing humanity's right to exist without interference. And most importantly, a guarantee that this will never happen again." The Chancellor looked around his council chamber at the alien officials who had supported the war against humanity. They all avoided his gaze, suddenly very interested in studying their data tablets. "And if we refuse?" Mordek asked quietly. Min-Su gestured toward the viewing screen, which showed the 37 human dreadnoughts surrounding the planet. "Then you'll discover why humans don't make good victims, Chancellor. We make excellent apex predators." Instead, the galaxy watched as the mighty hegemony coalition signed humanity's terms without argument. The species that had been dismissed as primitive farmers and miners had proven they were something far more dangerous. Survivors who learned from their mistakes and prepared for the worst. As news of the treaty spread across known space, one message became clear to every civilization in the galaxy. Earth's children had grown up, and they would never again bow to anyone.